The aftershocks of the Paris attacks continued this week, with Belgium in the spotlight. And a new Turkish-Russian crisis destabilized an already fragile geopolitical balance. Welcome to Europe Weekly. The terror alert level in Brussels was finally reduced from its highest level of 4 to 3. However, the image of the country suffered, as well as its economy. Let's take a look at this report. This close to Christmas, and business is normally booming for shops and traders in Brussels. But the security measures in place amid a terror alert has hit the revenues of local firms. Ivan Meyer is the mayor of the Belgian capital. We know, of course, that Brussels is also about quality of life, about the joy of living, a certain kind of humour which is very typical for Brussels. The soldier in front of a building should not remain the image of Brussels. The city's metro network will only reopen on Wednesday. The streets have not been totally deserted, but that move has hampered the ability of locals and tourists alike to get out and shop. Industry worries about what people elsewhere will think. I think even the Minister of Foreign Affairs has already spoken about repolishing the image of Brussels and of Belgium abroad. Employees say they want the terror threat level to be reduced as soon as possible. In Brussels, it's at 4 until Monday, the highest possible level. The longer the situation lasts, the worse it is for business. People are not coming, firstly because they're being talked out of coming. But even when the security measures are lifted, there'll be a kind of trauma in people's heads. It will depend on the continuity of the presence of the police and military, because I think that scares some people off. But I'm convinced in 2 to 3 weeks life will be back to normal. Whilst it's too early to give precise figures, economists say the losses for the Brussels economy and for Belgium will run into several millions of euros. On Thursday, authorities were again on alert when envelopes with suspect powder were found in the Grand Mosque of Brussels. It turned out just to be flour. The day before that, schools opened again, but not everybody was happy. Schools have started to reopen in Brussels after a 4-day security clampdown that followed the Paris attacks. But some parents worry whether it is safe to have done so. I'm fine, everything's safe if the police are there. It's not really safe because the situation is quite tense. The Belgian capital remains on its highest level of alert, level 4. New security measures have been proposed for schools, including possible safe rooms in the event of an attack. The idea of having such a place in school when an attack happens is a good one, but it's not the priority. The priority is immediate measures to protect children and families. For some, it's unclear why officials feel it's safe to reopen the city's schools. 2 key suspects from Brussels remain at large. Until Monday, the alert level and the measures taken were coherent. We could explain to people what was happening. Since Monday, Charles Michel tells us the threat remains the same. We stick to level 4, but we'll reopen the schools. It seems to be a bit paradoxical. Brussels will remain on its highest alert until at least next Monday, when the government plans to assess the situation. The European Parliament met in Strasbourg this week. Let's see what's changed there and what people in the city think as the Christmas market opens. After the Paris attacks, the European Parliament has stepped up its security measures in Brussels, but also in the French city of Strasbourg, where the Parliament's plenary session is just starting. We've also reduced the number of exits used by civil servants. Logically, we're more strict in Brussels than in Strasbourg because the situation is not the same. Security has also been increased at Strasbourg's Christmas market, which opens this Friday. Normally the market welcomes 2 million visitors each year from the whole of Europe. We've foreseen security checks on bags and people to stop people entering with weapons. Some parts of the market, like activities for children, have been cancelled, but local salespeople are just happy it's going ahead. We've always done this. It's not because of a minority that we're going to stop everything. We think about the danger every day, but we have to go on living. Life continues. Some member states want stricter border controls inside the Schengen zone. It's put the passport-free travel area under question. The EU Commission insists there's no problem. Our correspondent went to see the operational centre of the Schengen Information System. Random checks on the French-German border. This could become a more common sight after the murders in Paris 2 weeks ago. France wants tighter controls across the Schengen zone, a passport-free travel area of 22 EU and 4 non-EU countries. The French government also wants existing law enforcement databases to be used more. One is known as the Schengen Information System, which allows police forces to share data. All I can say is that in 2014 there were some 2 billion requests made on this system, so I'm a bit sceptical when people say the system is not used. At present, only non-EU citizens are systematically checked when they enter the Schengen zone. To introduce systematic controls on all citizens, the Schengen rules will need to be modified. The European Commission is set to present a proposal by the end of the year. But that approval could take time. In the meantime, several member states, and in particular France, want the passenger name record to be approved before the end of the year. This plan to collate and share air passenger data was revived after the Charlie Hebdo attacks. British Conservative MEP Timothy Kirkhope is steering the draft legislation through Parliament.
There are important matters, such as the question of whether this is an intra or whether it is just flights that come into the European Union but don't go within the European Union. I think that's the thing where Council is very determined that there should be an intra, and the Parliament has been not very happy about that.
MEPs rejected the so-called PNR system in 2013. The United States enacted similar legislation after September the 11th in 2001. After the downing of the Russian plane by Turkey, there's been a war of words between the country's two leaders, Vladimir Putin and Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Take a look at this report.
The leaders of Turkey and Russia have been talking tough and trading accusations over the downing of a Russian fighter jet. The international community has called on both sides to turn down the rhetoric, but tensions have risen again after Recep Tayyip Erdogan refused to apologize. In response, Vladimir Putin took to national television. We've not heard either an apology from Turkey's top politicians or proposals to compensate us for the damage, or a promise to punish the criminals, he said. It seems as if the Turkish leadership is willfully driving our relations into a deadlock, and we regret that, he added. Erdogan was equally adamant the fault lies with Moscow. If the same violation occurs today, then Turkey would react in the same way, he said. The country which violates another should question itself and take necessary steps to prevent a repetition of the incident, he added. Russia and Turkey have also traded barbs over who's the real source of power behind the Islamic State militants. Putin accused Ankara of funding the group through illegal trade. The terrorists and their illegal trade in oil, drugs and human trafficking were not only covered and are being covered, but some even made money out of that, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars. Earlier, Erdogan said if you're looking for who's responsible for providing weapons and financing Islamic State, then the first place you should look is the Assad regime itself. The country supporting him as well as those acting with him. The fallout from the escalating war of words is also being felt on the streets of both countries, where large protests have taken place with people calling on their governments to take punitive measures.
Let's take a look at next week's agenda. Amid huge security measures, UN climate talks kick off in Paris. They last until the 11th of December. Leaders are trying to cut CO2 emissions. On Tuesday, NATO foreign ministers meet in Brussels to try and de-escalate the Russian-Turkish crisis. Then on Thursday, Denmark will hold a referendum to decide whether to keep its opt-out model on EU policies for justice and home affairs. That's all for now. Have a great week.